Hello, Wastelanders! In the post-apocalyptic world of Fallout 4, we players meet a number of experts, paranoid eccentrics, AI supercomputers, and downright geniuses. Today we set out to answer the question, who is the smartest smarty-pants NPC of the Commonwealth? Let's begin with some of the best educated members of the greater Boston apocalypse, the brave medical doctors. They are, after all, a relatively rare and valuable encounter due to their expertise in patching up the bruised, broken, irradiated maladies of the sole survivor.
This is a medical facility. It's not unusual for there to be some blood here or there.
One medical practitioner that particularly deserves our attention is the lovably Parisian companion, Curie.
Oh, another stranger. Are you Voltec security? I've waited so very patiently for you to arrive.
Left alone in Vault 81 to study and cure a supervirus, this fantastic francophone not only succeeds, but expresses a most unrobotic passion for research and discovery.
I am pleased to report I completed my primary duties 83 years ago. Thousands of pathogens were grown in the mole rat hosts. Then a single broad-spectrum cure was developed to treat them all.
The medical Miss Nannybot even goes so far as to insist that she needs to become human, so that she can stop sparking her wires and better tap into the spark of inspiration that human researchers enjoy.
I beg to become a synth for a reason, for science, to be able to make real progress in studying the medical arts. I have had a breakthrough.
We all know how vital stimpaks are for healing in the wasteland, so it's no small thing that Curie eventually creates a new, better stimpak to share with the sole survivor. But there are headier heights of braininess to discover in our climb up Mensa Mountain, so Curie's improved stimpak is only enough to earn her an honorable mention.
I know it wasn't easy, but you did it.
Let's go meet the boss.
Our next candidate for consideration is another pre-war leftover who managed to continue their research as the world fell apart. Jack Cabot of the distinguished Cabot family can be found still living quite comfortably in his well-preserved ancestral home in Boston. Our first meeting with Jack finds him deep in sciencey stuff before cordially conversing with us about matters of the occult. He claims his father discovered the ruins of a sophisticated alien civilization that predates all human civilizations and generally sounds a little cuckoo.
My father excavated a city in the Rub al-Khali in Arabia, which he dated to more than 4,000 years before the rise of any known human civilization.
Spoiler alert, intriguingly, Jack's stories are corroborated by the presence of a mysterious serum that has kept he and his family from aging for roughly 400 years. Further pursuit of this mystery leads to the discovery that his father Lorenzo Cabot is not only in possession of a powerful ancient artifact that has granted him godlike powers and immortality, but is also Jack's prisoner because he is a murderous megalomaniac who would have destroyed the Commonwealth and possibly the world if it weren't for the Abremlin field that Jack employs to restrain Lorenzo's incredible powers.
You know I can't let you out until I can remove the artifact.
Lorenzo's high-tech prison seems to be Jack's original design and is undeniably an impressive feat of engineering. So, Jack is an immortal scientist who can imprison a demigod. You may justifiably be asking yourself why the contest isn't over right here and now. But the truth is, we don't know how much brainpower was really required to derive the mysterious Cabot immortality serum, since Jack refines it directly from Lorenzo's enhanced blood.
Sorry, Father. I did everything I could to avoid this. I believe I was close to finding a way to remove the artifact.
Liar! Get upon me here forever if you'd had your way.
Also, it's possible that Jack's true gifts are nepotism and longevity, rather than genius, since he's had 400 well-funded years to springboard his knowledge off of Lorenzo's unique nature. This assessment is supported by the fact that if Lorenzo is killed, Jack essentially has no ideas that didn't depend on Lorenzo and packs up shop, resolving to settle his affairs and wait for the end.
I won't be needing your services after this.
Thanks for your service, Jack, but Daddy's legacy isn't going to win you the smartest smarty-pants NPC crown. Our next contender is the only one coming to us from a DLC. The old synth on the mountain, Dima of Far Harbor, certainly makes an impression. We find him, like a synthetic Dalai Lama, living in the Acadia Observatory on the highest peak in Far Harbor, jacking into his virtual brain like Morpheus from The Matrix, and spouting cryptic wisdom-esque soundbites, again, like Morpheus from The Matrix.
One more question, if you'll indulge me.
You have to give him credit. He is the only NPC who offers us the red pill.
I suspect there could be another reason you came to us. Tell me, Are you a synth?
Sure, Dima is insufferably condescending, has a memory problem worse than the woman in the notebook, and is an incurable hypocrite. But he is an augmented AI with more to forget than most people will ever have to remember, and he orchestrated his own escape from the Institute. Not only does his braininess require a building full of analog servers to contain and an annoying minigame to access, he is able to tabulate various doomsday scenarios for the entire population of Far Harbor and then strategically manipulate those projections to achieve the ends he desires. Who can top that?
I won't lie to you. There will always be other explanations.
Well, since you asked, there is another character in Fallout 4 who can arguably beat Dima at his own game and who doesn't need a building full of servers and a support staff to do it.
But I can promise you that you will be accepted here. Whatever you decide is true for yourself.
Allow me to introduce P.A.M.
I was, am, and will most likely be P.A.M. Predictive Analytic Machine.
Get out of here with your Far Harbor projections, Dima. P.A.M. is a bleeding-edge pre-war predictive analytic matrix who can tell the future of the entire Commonwealth with a less than 1% margin for error and a 0% margin for Mama Murphy's creep factor.
I saw it.
The fact that P.A.M. fell into the Railroad's lap is the biggest single reason that the seemingly unstoppable Institute juggernaut hasn't wiped out the Railroad long ago. Not only can she identify possible threats and possible resources, you have P.A.M. to thank for unlocking Ballistic Weave, you're welcome, but she can also anticipate the most statistically sound course of action in the chaos of the impossibly complex post-apocalyptic Commonwealth. But dear viewers, therein lies her greatest weakness. Just as sweet Curie realized robots' insights are limited by their programming constraints, P.A.M. is the most advanced AI abacus in the world, a very useful calculator, but we are not looking for a powerful tool. We are looking for genius.
Terminating human-machine interface.
Since Curie's wisdom about programming constraints has ended P.A.M.'s run for the Smartest Smarty Pants NPC title, it's only fitting that we take a look at the impressive intellectual who helped Curie surpass her programming. Dr. Amari runs the memory den in Good Neighbor. We shouldn't let the unassuming location of her operation fool us, however.
Now what's this all about?
We need a deep dig, Amari, but it's not going to be easy.
In regards to the physical science of memory in the human brain, Dr. Amari is without peer. Not only does she run a parlor that offers the fantastical service of memory immersion to its patrons, Dr. Amari assists the Railroad with synth memory wipes and replacement. In this field, no one outside the Institute is capable of anything even approaching this level of sophistication.
Nick told me you're the only one who can make this work.
Amari's expertise is so singular that there is no way to complete Curie's companion quest or indeed the main storyline without her assistance.
You need this, and so do we.
Both of which require Amari to successfully improvise a scientific solution that has never been attempted by anyone in history before. Her credentials are terrifically impressive, but they do have their limits. As Amari informs us, only one person outside the Institute can decode a courser chip, and it isn't her.
Unfortunately, I can't help you. I've worked on a lot of synths, but never a courser. I don't know what that chip does, let alone how to decode it. But there are people who might.
A million things can go wrong, the least of which is losing the data. Fortunately, we have the right man for the job.
Ladies and gentlemen, entering the ring with an IQ far higher than his body weight is the hacker of hackers. He puts the trick in eccentric. Everybody please welcome...
Hey, Dad. You need something?
Tinker Tom!
Whoa! For real?
Many of the greatest minds in history have battled with issues of extreme anxiety and paranoia. By that measure, Tinker Tom is certainly the greatest.
There's more going on than you know. The census sweep says you're clean. Okay, have you eaten anything out there? Okay. I hope you like your whole life being downloaded to the Institute's mainframe. Everyone's all, you've been hitting the chems way too hard. The Institute has these tiny microscopic robots in the food, man. Who set off the first A bomb? The Institute did. You gotta be careful, man. The Institute is in your blood.
But setting aside his peculiar delusions, the facts speak for themselves. The Railroad is unavoidable in the main storyline for one reason. No one but Tinker Tom can crack the most advanced encryptions in existence, and he does it with a scrap-built terminal in a drafty 18th century crypt. His talents don't end there. Tinker Tom generates new weapon attachments and ballistic weaves to sell in his shop. Tom's Milas provide surveillance data for P.A.M. He flies a vertibird after one speed read of the manual. When playing the Railroad storyline, Tinker Tom literally and figuratively engineers the destruction of two powerful factions, the Brotherhood of Steel and the Institute. And in what is certainly one of the core litmus tests of smartness in the world of Fallout 4, Tinker Tom is able to decipher the relay signal interceptor plans.
And I filled in the blanks on the blueprints. We can actually build this crazy thing.
And confound the Institute's most advanced technology with it to allow you into the Institute.
All right, feeding our baby some juice. Let's see what she's got.
But before we crown Tom as Emperor of Empirical Method, we have a few other characters to consider who managed to pull off the same feat.
I can prove that the Institute is terraforming the Commonwealth.
First to the go-to guru of the Minutemen faction, seen here in modded NCR garb. Sturges is likely one of the first NPCs most players meet. He can be found with Preston Garvey and the Quincy survivors at the Museum of Freedom in Concord. At the museum, Sturges claims that he is no good with computers, and he spends most of his time puttering around Sanctuary. As it turns out, he was underselling his abilities a bit.
Looks like encrypted RF transmissions. Okay, so that gets routed through... What the hell? Teleportation.
Actually, Sturges, who is secretly a synth, is smart enough to understand the relay plans, good enough at engineering to pull off the same relay signal interceptor assembly, and good enough with computers to operate the relay interceptor and set up the network scanner holotape, just as Tinker Tom does. And if the player calls on the Minutemen to help them in the Institute, Sturges masterminds the plan, the necessary device, and runs the relay to extract his allies out of harm's way, just like Tinker Tom. Sturges, like the Minutemen faction, is an all-rounder, smart enough to do almost anything the player needs in a pinch, but smart enough doesn't make him stand out as the smartest.
But it's basically not that different than the lining of a jet engine or something like that.
The Brotherhood of Steel introduces several intelligent characters when they come rolling into the Commonwealth on the Pridwin, the smartest of which is everyone's favorite elder, Maxon.
You have accomplished this amazing feat without a hint of purpose or direction.
Just kidding. But seriously, there are several scientific smarties on board. Proctor Quinlan is surrounded by books, inexhaustibly devours technical documents, and has a posh British accent, somehow.
Ah, good. You're finally here. Just set the books down anywhere.
But other than processing the network scanner data, he doesn't demonstrate his abilities in any meaningful way.
Perhaps I need to rummage through the supply bins for a new pair of glasses.
Scribe Naraya at least produces evidence that her gray matter matters by creating a better version of Radex from mutated genetic material. But this discovery is on par with the likes of Curie, not Tinker Tom.
Feel free to have a look at the specimens, but please don't touch anything.
Proctor Ingram, on the other hand, not only keeps the Pridwin from dropping out of the sky with her technical prowess, she also deciphers, builds, and operates the signal relay interceptor, a distinction she shares with Tom and Sturges. The final feather in Ingram's cap is that she also oversees a great deal of the restoration of Liberty Prime, the most advanced robot/weapon ever built.
The Brotherhood used it in the Capital Wasteland as a weapon against the Enclave.
But we can't choose a winner of the smartest smarty pants without addressing the synthetic gorilla in the room. We all knew this was coming.
Welcome to the Institute.
After all, it is Institute technology like the relay, the synth, and the Courser chip that we have been measuring everyone else's brain power by. And after eliciting the help of Sturges, Proctor Ingram, or Tinker Tom, players find themselves transported to an underground preserve of super nerds. The Institute has been sheltering intellectuals and stewing them in their own analytical juices for over 2 centuries, and we get to meet its smartest residents.
And our actions are often misinterpreted by those above ground.
I'm going to attempt a little interpretation and say that despite appearances, there is little evidence that the Institute's leader, Sean, contributed much more than his DNA and his charisma to the Institute's great technical achievements.
Fascinating, but disappointing.
Instead, we'll focus on the various department heads, starting with Allie Fillmore of the Facilities Division. Allie is busy supervising the maintenance of a Gen 2 synth when we encounter her, and she tells us that the entire infrastructure of the Institute is under her stewardship. Maybe that makes her a glorified maintenance man, but she demonstrates her expertise when she accompanies the player to obtain the beryllium agitator from the mass fusion building. It turns out Allie's department is part of the all-important Phase 3 initiative and involved in upgrading the Institute's pre-war nuclear power reactor. Not too shabby, Allie. But our Institute meet and greet is far from over. We move on to that brown-noser Clayton Holdren in bioscience. Clayton certainly is proud of his synthetic gorilla project and can brag that his department's research with radiation-resistant crops probably does in fact represent the best hope for mankind.
To that end, we cultivate highly specialized breeds of flora for use in food and medicine.
That sounds important, Holdren, but we aren't handing out the award yet.
I'm not sure. Right now I'm just trying to keep an open mind.
It's a big decision, I know.
Stopping by the Synth Reclamation Bureau to talk about Justin Ao is really just a formality. He might have some letters after his name, but it's pretty obvious that he is acting head of the Institute's coarser goon squads because of his ambition for martial power, not mental power. If he was really top egghead in the Institute, he'd be somewhere like robotics or advanced systems. Speaking of which, Alan Binet in robotics is one to watch, since for years he has overseen the department that produces the Institute's greatest marvel, the synth. As we all know, the third-generation synth is virtually indistinguishable from humans, except that synths are more physically capable and less susceptible to disease and radiation than the natural-born humans they emulate. The level of mastery required to make this happen was not achieved by Alan Binet alone, but as a director, he is very hands-on. In more ways than one. He has the distinction of being one of the only voices of synth advocacy within the Institute.
But we can't just ignore the question. If a synth can dream, why can't it have a soul?
And of being the only character to pull off the ultimate lonely nerd accomplishment, creating his own romantic partner in a lab and brazenly dubbing her Eve. Believe it or not, though, the Institute's biggest brainpower jackpot isn't in robotics, it is in advanced systems. Entering advanced systems, we encounter Rosalind Orman, a Mensa candidate if there ever was one. She is fire testing an energy weapon she has upgraded and casually rattles off the multiple calculations and equations she is running simultaneously in her head as if it's no big thing.
Sorry if I seem distracted. I memorized 5 sets of design schematics and now I'm doing detailed mental comparisons.
The kicker is, Ormond is living in the shadow of an even greater mind. Dr. Madison Li is head of advanced systems. In the game, Li is scripted as the last stop on the Institute tour for a reason. Not only is she the one expert enough in the relay to be entrusted by Sean with the task of installing a relay chip in the player's Pip-Boy, she is the one expert enough in synth technology to be tasked with developing and studying Sean's precious prototype child synth double. On top of that, Li's Advanced Systems Department is where the Institute's oh-so-critical Phase 3 reactor project is housed, and Advanced Systems, along with the Facilities Department, is spearheading the upgrades. And what's more, when playing through the Institute storyline, Li and her understudy Ormond come up with a plan to take down the Institute's greatest threat, the Brotherhood of Steel. Perhaps most telling of all is that unlike the other department heads here, Li wasn't born into the Institute. She came from the Capital Wasteland with the goal of joining a faction so exclusive that they literally have to beam you in, and because of her mental acumen, she was not only recruited, but within 10 years, her intellectual influence can be felt in at least 4 of the Institute's most prestigious achievements. There is, however, one other Institute member who might rival her, the Institute colleague Dr. Li most highly respected. An ex-colleague, really.
Now, I need to get back to work, and I'm sure you have other things to do.
Dr. Bryan Virgil, one of the top bioscience boys, is known to every Fallout 4 player because completing the main storyline is impossible without his assistance. An Institute defector, Virgil must be sought at the furthest edge of the treacherous glowing sea, and he makes quite a first impression. But the fact that he's a super mutant is the least important thing about him. As head of FEV studies, Virgil was capable of safely manipulating a notoriously capricious virus. Not only does Virgil have the mental independence to ethically object to the Institute's FEV projects, but he was able to secretly develop a strain of FEV that preserved a person's mental powers. He masterminded a plan to use the FEV on himself as a means to aid his destruction of the Institute's FEV program and aid his escape. Despite having little to no experience surviving outside the Institute, Virgil also successfully navigates the most dangerous parts of the wasteland and evades the Institute's most lethal hunters. And there's more. In a stunning display of abilities that should be far outside of his reach as a bioscience specialist, Virgil is the one who invents the relay interceptor and draws the detailed schematics that the big brains Tinker Tom, Sturges, and Proctor Ingram relied on to even conceptualize the relay interceptor technology, let alone build it. Can you imagine Clayton Holdren pulling that off?
I'm sure I've taken up enough of your time as it is.
Let's not forget that Virgil also creates the first cure for super mutant FEV that has ever been developed.
Virgil.
Welcome back.
It needs some refinement, but I think we can consider my serum a qualified success.
So, does bravely defecting from the Institute and masterfully using one's special expertise and the Institute's own resources to derail the Institute's schemes make Bryan Virgil the smartest smarty pants of Fallout 4? Actually, no, because he isn't the only one to do it.
Fascinating, but disappointing.
We haven't finished tallying Madison Li's accomplishments. In addition to everything we listed about Madison Li during her time as head of advanced systems, there is also a backstory and a post-story. In fact, why don't I let her tell you?
I did some pretty sensitive work for the Brotherhood of Steel. Even though Lyons let me go, there were a few others in the ranks that thought I knew too much. That's why I came to the Institute.
Li was the foremost engineer of the Brotherhood's restoration and use of Liberty Prime to take down the immensely powerful Enclave in the Capital Wasteland. Then, she showed the wherewithal to follow her own mind, defy the Brotherhood, and leave their service to survive a dangerous journey to the Commonwealth and join the Institute, as we know. But it doesn't end there. If a Fallout 4 player follows the Brotherhood storyline, they are mandated by Elder Maxon to find and recruit Dr. Li from the Institute.
Your mission is simple. Once you're inside the Institute, we want you to track down Dr. Li's whereabouts. If you find out that she's still alive, make contact with her and convince her to return to the Brotherhood of Steel. There's a special project we're working on, and it needs her attention.
Because Proctor Ingram, despite her incredible abilities, can't fix Liberty Prime's power systems, Li can. As a footnote, I will acknowledge that Professor Scara in Diamond City must be pretty sharp, even though Professor is her first name and not an official title, because Scara is apparently able to stand in for Li as a Brotherhood contingency and repair Liberty Prime if necessary. But that is the only real item on her, probably mostly fake, resume. Clearly, Li is the mind in high demand, and showing Li proof that her respected colleague Bryan Virgil's escape from the Institute was covered up and made to look like an accidental death is one way to get her to follow in his footsteps, defect from the Institute, find her way alone across the dangerous Commonwealth, and not just evade her omnipotent former faction, but engineer its complete destruction using the most advanced war machine ever created.
Liberty Prime, back online.
If that isn't the greatest scientific mic drop in Fallout 4, I don't know what is. This was close, folks, so let's all take a minute to honor our many brilliantly brainy contestants.
Voice module online. Audio functionality test initialized. Designation: Liberty Prime, Mark 2. Mission: Liberation of Anchorage, Alaska.
Dr. Madison Li is the geniest genius, the brainiest brainiac, the smartest smarty pants NPC in Fallout 4. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give it a like, and I look forward to reading what you thought in the comments. All the clips were taken from playthroughs that were featured in my other videos and live streams on the channel, so I invite you to check those out if you would like to see more. And I invite you to join our membership community if you would like to help support my efforts to keep more content coming your way. Later, Raiders. I'll see you in the next one.
Now, I need to get back to work, and I'm sure you have other things to do.